Hello, everyone, and welcome to NCT On Air. I'm excited to introduce you today to two wonderful authors, Candy Fleming and Marilyn Singer. And we're going to talk about the awards that they've received from NCTE, the fact that they'll be joining us at the annual convention this fall. They'll talk to you about their experience as writers, creators. And without further ado, I'd love to have them introduce themselves and start our conversation. We'll start with you, Candy.
Oh, hi. I'm glad to be here. I'm Candy Fleming. I'm excited to be here with Marilyn and have a interesting conversation. Oh.
Thank you. And we'll move on to Marilyn.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Singer. I'm really glad to be here too. It is a lovely day in New York, which is quite amazing. So enjoy. I'll try to bring some of the sunshine wherever you are.
Good. Well, I know we can use that. It's a little fuzzy here in Washington D.C. Not as sunny as I might hope, although we could certainly use some rain. To get started, I think a big question that people always have, I'm sure you get it from students when you have an opportunity to go and speak to them, is what got you into writing and what keeps you going? And let's see, whoever would like to start can jump in. Oh, let's see, Marilyn's going to start. There you go, Marilyn, yeah.
Yeah. I wrote from the time I was a little kid. I wrote mostly poetry. I started, I think, in about 3rd grade. I used to read my poems at show and tell, which I think the teachers really liked, but I'm not sure whether my classmates liked it quite as much as the teachers. And when I got a little older, I thought maybe I would write, this is really odd, but I would write how-to books. Things like how to stay cool in the summer. I don't know why. I have no idea. But my mother said to me that it would be better if I became a teacher because that is a more stable profession than writing or some of the other ideas that I had. So I actually did become a high school English teacher for 4 years. But I was kind of a renegade. And I didn't get along that well with the administration. So I left teaching, and I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I ended up writing how-to stuff, teaching guides on films. I wrote film strips. You all remember film strips. They don't exist anymore, but I wrote them. I wrote catalog copy for films because my husband worked for the American Federation of Arts, which distributed avant-garde film and films on art. And then one day I started to write stories based on talking insect characters that I had made up when I was a kid. I used to go into my parents' bathroom with a flashlight, and I would shine the light on the ceiling, and I would talk in the voices of these insects. So I started to write those down when I left teaching, and I showed them around. They didn't get published immediately. They did get published eventually as a sort of novel called The Lady Stories. It didn't work terribly well, but it did get published. But I joined a writing group, which was at Bank Street College, and it was a great group, and I kept reading stuff to them. And one story that people liked was called The Dog Who Insisted He Wasn't, and I sent it around, and I was very, very lucky. This was in the 70s. I had that book accepted within 6 months, which is kind of a rarity, I think, then and now. It was a little easier then because people read more things over the transom. I didn't have an agent. And so I wrote that. I sold it to Dutton, and then I sold 2 more books in rapid succession, and I thought, I think I'm a writer. And that's what got me started. But I didn't publish poetry for a while. My first books were all prose picture books and novels. And the first poetry book was Turtle in July, and that really got me started on publishing my poetry because I love writing everything, but to be honest with you, poetry really is my favorite thing to write, and now I've written a lot of poetry books, and that's what actually got me started as a writer. So I got to thank those talking insects and all my editors and publishers as well.
That's wonderful. And Marilyn is NCTE's received the NCTE's Poetry Award. So how fitting that we get to celebrate that piece of the writing that you love to do so much. Candy, can you tell us about what brought you in?
Sure. You know, like Marilyn, I've always been a writer. I was writing all the time, even when I was a kid. I love to make up stories, and I would do it just for me, for my own satisfaction. I know a lot of it really was therapeutic. You know, you're working stuff out on paper. I used to come home from school and write, fill a couple of pages just as quickly as I could, and then go out to play. And like Marilyn, I had these teachers that would let me actually read my writing to the class, which you do wonder, did they even really appreciate it? I'm sure they did not. But boy, you talk about making a person a writer, because suddenly you're thinking about audience. You know, here I am, fourth grade, I'm thinking about an audience, because gosh, I'm going to read this to my classmates. I can't say I ever thought I was actually going to be a writer. I don't think I even thought of it as a career at all. I went to school, went to college, majored in history. I see the connection now, because history is just really one big, long, great adventure story, but I didn't see it at the time. And then when I got out of college, I worked for a historical society here in Chicago briefly. I worked for an insurance company briefly. I had children of my own, and my second son was born with a heart defect, and so I had to retire from working full time. So I was home with him, and I needed something, just something for myself besides being somebody's mom. I just needed a few minutes of my own thing. And so I thought, well, what can I do here from home? And I thought, well, I think I can write. And so I actually started writing things for adults, things, and I was writing my life. So I was writing things for American Baby. I wrote, oh yes, this is mine. I wrote 7 strategies for nap time, right? 7 strategies. That's scintillating reading and writing. I wrote stuff for American History Illustrated. I wrote some things for the Chicago Tribune magazine when there still was one. I did not think about writing for children, although we were going to the library almost daily, right? I come in with these bags of books, and this is what was happening at our house. I really think that was sort of my apprenticeship, if you will, in children's books, because I probably was reading 50 a day, really, because I loved them so much. And I would read to my kids. We'd come home with those big, groaning book bags, and at night we would read picture books, one after the other, and this was what would happen at my house. My kids I would be going, oh, just one more, and my kids would be going, please, Mommy, turn off the light, So it really was almost a matter of preservation for my sons, and I needed to write a few of my own stories, otherwise I might have driven them crazy. So yeah, I sort of backed into it. I discovered how much I loved them pretty late.
Yeah, I wonder how many people have stories like that, like both of yours, that you sort of fall into writing as opposed to it being something that is immediately the first thing that you think you're going to do. I love the way that was something that kind of evolved and developed for both of you. And Candy has received this year's Orbis Pictus Award for the family Romanov. Am I saying my name right? Yes. So both of you have been recognized by NCTE for your contributions to the field. And I know you have a huge fan base within the NCTE membership. But can you talk a little bit about, you've been recognized in other places too for your work. Can you talk a little bit about how being recognized and getting these awards figures into your identity as a writer, or how does that influence the way that you go about doing your work? We'll go with Marilyn. You want to start? Let me unmute you here. Sorry. There you go.
There are a number of awards out there, but I have to be honest and tell you that the one award that I really wanted to win was the NCT Award for Excellence in Poetry. I am not kidding you. Every year I would, well, it's not given out every year, but every couple of years I would say to my husband, I would really like to win that award. Get all giggly about it. And I actually want to tell you what happened when I did find out I won this year, because it was kind of funny. It was the day after my husband's birthday. His birthday is November 21st, and that, in fact, is the luncheon this year, so it's going to be a big birthday celebration for him, too. But last year was a very very big drive all weekend long, and the day that the award was announced, we had just taken a private dance lesson because he and I do swing and ballroom and a lot of stuff. Candy knows this. We've been doing this now for years, and we were having brunch with with our several dance teachers. We've got a couple, and I was trying to put it out of my mind that this award was going to be announced. I really was, and I managed to succeed, but my husband didn't put it out of his mind, and he was checking his phone. He was checking my email on his phone, and he saw an email from Jacqueline Woodson, who is my friend and neighbor, and she said, "You won." And Steve said, "I'm about to make Marilyn very happy," and he announced it at this little brunch we were having, at which point I burst into tears, and I was just ecstatic. And then, then other people said congratulations. So the award, that award is meaningful to me for a number of reasons.
I think poetry is an underappreciated art. Poetry books don't usually win things like the Newbery or the Caldecott. Occasionally they do, and I don't want to slam those awards because they're great awards, but it's just underappreciated. This is an award that's dedicated to poetry. And on top of that, it's the body of somebody's work. So to me, that is a great honor, and it also means that the people who are giving the award, the committee that chooses the poet, really appreciates that person's body of work. It's like, I was just looking at John Hamm won an Emmy last night. I didn't even watch the Emmys, but I read what he said, and he said, "This is an appreciation of the hard work that I put into playing this character," and that is really true. I mean, all writing is hard work, and it's really wonderful to know that somebody says, "You've worked hard, we like what you've done, it's, we appreciate it." Also, the big thing about awards, besides the fact that, you get stroked and you get appreciated, is that more people are likely to read your books. And I don't know any writer out there who does not want to be read. I mean, and that's the main, to me, that's the main thing. Maybe more people will discover you, maybe more people will read your books. In my case, or in the case of any of the poets, I want people to see that poetry is entertaining, and it's not just something to be scared of, or it's dull, or something like that. It's fun. Now, that doesn't mean it's always simple. Sometimes you have to think about it. It's a puzzle. It's a game. But that's fun, too. So I'm hoping that
this award and awards like it show people, that this stuff is entertaining. Read it, appreciate it, have fun with it. And maybe you'll get to talk to the person who won also and ask some questions about why did you write this, what interests you, blah, blah, blah. So I hope that answers your question.
That does. Thank you. And I think that definitely is true. I know for me, I've been at NCTE now for about a year, and as soon as all these awards were announced, my children now are super excited that I work here because our bookshelves in our family are now filled with a lot of new books.
Yeah,
so
that's cool. That's really great. Yeah,
that works. How about for you, Candy? Let me. I'm going to unmute your mic. There you go.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel the same. I just can only add to what Marilyn had to say because I feel exactly the same way. Particularly Orbis Pictus. That too is an award that I really wanted to win, simply because the people on the committee, NCTE, those people are always so smart. They always know what's really good literature. I mean, their standards of what good children's literature are the standards that I aspire to. So to have actually won the award is unbelievably. I think John Hamm's kept saying the word improbable last night. Let's talk about John Hamm. But that's sort of exactly the way I felt about it too. And I had forgotten that it was Orbis Pictus time because I was actually in Singapore. And so I got, in Singapore. And I got this email from the chair of the committee, Cindy Georgios, and I was absolutely stunned. And then, of course, I wasn't supposed to tell anybody because I was not supposed to tell anyone, but I thought I'm in Singapore. Who's going to tell? And I couldn't stand it because I was sitting in. I was at the American School in Singapore, and I was sitting in the librarian's office between classes that I was speaking to, and I was actually sitting there with her and looking at my email, and I leaped out of the chair. So I either had to tell her what was going on, or she was going to think I was crazy, which was really terrific. But I mean, they were thrilled too, because everyone knows, what standards those awards are actually held to. Like Marilyn, I think what they do is help you connect with readers that you may never have actually had before. That it shines a light on them, and that's what we're always trying to do. It's an odd job that we do. We sit in this, like here I sit in this room all by myself, trying to reach as many people as I possibly can, and so awards help you do that. I also think for me anyway, it reminded me, particularly in the case of the family Romanoff, that I was on the right track. That the book seemed sort of an improbable topic and book for kids anyway. Russian history, and it's it's a pretty muscular book about revolution, and it's not a happy ending, and it's complicated and often dark, and the ending is not particularly uplifting. All right, it's not uplifting, but so as an author, and I'm sure Marilyn has this too, as an author you're going, okay, I'm doing the work I'm passionate about, I'm doing the work that I care about, I'm doing the work that I think is important, and I may not reach very many people with this book, but if I reach one kid, I've done my work. But you do get the end and you think to yourself, wow, will anybody even care about this? Have I chosen such an obscure and strange topic that nobody's gonna care? And so what it does sort of say to you is it says, yes, you're on the right track. Keep doing that work. Do it again the next time. Don't be scared to do it. Be even braver, be bolder, be more creative. Go push it even farther to the edge. That at least is what awards, do for me. And I think so in the end, what do we end up doing is that as a community we end up having even greater literature, even more creative, thoughtful, wonderful, exciting literature for kids. Yeah.
Great. Well, and I love that idea that this feels like it gives you maybe some license to keep pushing in a direction that you might not otherwise think to do. So for both of you, I had a question that was about one thing you might want readers to get from your work, but for both of you, your work is so varied. I'm wondering if I could tweak that a little bit and say, wondering if you could share something that you have learned from a reader or readers that they have gotten from your work that maybe was surprising to you or was exciting.
I think what I find most exciting, and I'm just thinking about, because I have, like I said, so many varied kinds of work, but if I think about it in terms of the family Romanoff, I have gotten a lot of emails and letters from kids, older kids, that keep saying to me, well, I thought I didn't like history. I don't read nonfiction, right? And yet your book was so good. I kept turning the pages. And they will even, more than once, they'll ask me, a lot of kids will ask me for a recommendation. What else would I read on the topic? And I think, wow, that's an amazing thing. And I was astonished by it. I'm still astonished by it, and honored and humbled. But yeah, that's pretty great. How many of them said they didn't like history, or they thought they didn't? So
it was what you just said, Candy, that people suddenly discovered, well, maybe I do like history. The same thing has happened to me with poetry. That people who thought they didn't like poetry said to me, oh, but I like your book. And I'm like, no, you like a lot of poetry, you just haven't discovered it yet necessarily. One of my favorite stories is that one of my really good friends, who actually lives upstairs, said he didn't like poetry, and then he read my book Mirror Mirror, and he and his wife and her family read the poems from it aloud over dinner, and he said, I liked it, and I'm like, I'll be so surprised.
You probably like more poetry than you think. Another thing that has always really moved me is that a lot of teachers have said that they are using my poems, particularly Mirror Mirror and Follow Follow, which have a form called a reverso. For those people who don't know what that is, it's one poem with two halves. You read the first half down, and then you read it with the lines reversed, with changes only in punctuation and capitalization. And the second half has to say something completely different from the first half. So a number of teachers have told me that they are using these poems to teach all kinds of things, not just the stories and not just poetry, but you know, grammar, of course, and syntax. And someone said she was using them to teach math, and I never found out how, but I would love to know how they were being used to teach math. And I like this, what I call cross-pollination, you know, where a literary form is being used to teach other subjects. So when you write a great history book, you're teaching history, but you're also teaching literature because you're making it so vibrant, and you're probably teaching other things as well. And that's, I think poetry can do that as well. And I like that teachers are using these things in many ways, and I like that people are reading them and discovering connections in many ways. That to me is very exciting and moving. So.
Well, and so to follow up on that, Marilyn, you've given examples of how these books are having impact in lots of different spaces, but I imagine that as an author, you go and speak to teachers quite often, and I know that that's something that both you and Candy will be doing this fall at the annual convention. And so I'm wondering, what do you get from the experience of going and talking to educators about this work, particularly with your background having started out in the classroom? I wonder what it's like now to be talking to these people who are in the classroom, who are teaching with this work that you're creating. What do you like about that? What do you like about talking to educators?
Well, mostly when I talk to teachers, it's at big conferences these days, which is very nice because there's a lot of people there at one time. Okay, I think that teaching is, maybe this sounds corny, but I think it really is a noble profession. You do not go into it to get rich. You don't go into writing to get rich either. So there's that connection. And I think people who stay in teaching are really staying in it because they're dedicated. They want to impart something. They love what they're doing. So it's wonderful to talk to people who love what they're doing. Also, teachers tend to get what writers are doing. You know, they're fascinated by the writing process. They teach our stuff. So it's like, well, how did you get to that point? What do you do? What could I use that I might be able to impart to my students? I had a fantastic experience recently. I spoke at Brigham Young University. It was a children's lit conference, and there were 6 authors and illustrators there. And I asked the teachers, what subjects would you like to see poems about? And it was amazing. There were actually four Q&A sessions. They were each about a half an hour long, so there were a lot of teachers. And I got so many interesting responses to that. So that was exciting to me. I like that give and take. But I just really like the fervor and the enthusiasm that, you know, that teachers bring to it. And Candy, I'm sure, feels the same way. So
teachers are such eager learners, aren't they? And they're such eager listeners. So when I'm talking to a group or when I'm going to schools, the teachers are always so interested and add so much. And actually, they end up teaching me so much. So here I am, and I'm talking about, say, the research process, and they'll ask a question that I've never thought about before, and then together we'll hammer out this answer. And you all know that they're taking all that. They're like, you know, they're taking all of it back to their own classrooms and you know, sort of spreading everything. All that knowledge gets spread. It really is. And I particularly love NCTE. I particularly love NCTE because the people that come to that are so, like you said, the fervor, the passion, the knowledge. You know, I always learn so much when I go to the conference.
This year, the theme for the annual convention is responsibility, creativity, and the arts of language. And I was wondering, this wasn't a question that I shared with you earlier, but it's something that I've been thinking a lot about. The program chair, Doug Hetsey, has been talking about why he specifically chose that phrase, the arts of language, and how he feels like with all that's going on in conversations around education and what it seems that we value, also in terms of intellect and intellectual achievements, he feels like we need to reassert the value of the arts of language in what we consider an important part of society, an important part of what people create. I wonder how that resonates with you. How do you think about your work fitting into the vast collection of what constitutes the arts of language today, particularly as we keep expanding that definition with new technologies and new ways of thinking about literacy? I'll go with, I don't know who wants to start. I'll unmute you both and we'll see what happens.
Well, I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking that it's an interesting phrase, the arts of language. I'm thinking that poetry is all about the art of language. There's a quote that I always use because I really like it. It was Coleridge, and he said, "Prose is words in their best order. Poetry is the best words in their best order." If that isn't about art, I don't know. The art of language. I don't know what is. So I'm very interested in that concept, that phrase, and also the idea that language is precise, it can be precise, that to learn to use it with precision is to have a new art that you can use, or you can have, if you want to use toolboxes, something else in your toolbox. And I think also when you are teaching, let's say, literature, to appreciate things more than just what is this story about. Let us analyze this story, but to look at the art behind it. Sometimes it's appreciating, with poetry, it's appreciating musicality. It's appreciating, can be rhyme if it's a rhyme. It's the rhythm. To have a visceral response to those things before you worry about any of the analytical stuff. So I think that for teachers to be able to present this stuff and just go, well, just enjoy it first and the art of it. Just like if you go to a museum, you don't look at a painting and immediately go, what is the medium? Whoops, I lost myself there. What is the medium? What is the, what period is it? You just look at it, and the first thing is to feel something from it. I wanted to say one other thing. I saw the movie Boyhood recently. Finally saw it. And I really liked it. And the thing I liked the most was one thing that the father says to the boy when he's a teen, and that is the important thing is to feel something. And I think when you're talking about the arts of language or art of anything, it starts with feeling. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't bring your head into it as well, but I think that maybe gets us back to the sense of feeling something, of having a response to it. Ken, do you agree with that? I'm curious.
I do. I do. I was even thinking about, I was thinking about the art of language, and I don't know if we even think about language as being particularly artful, because language is this tool that we use constantly, right? We're using it now, not just the writing, but we're talking to each other constantly all the time. And it almost, when we were talking about it, I thought to myself, it made me suddenly think about how thoughtful we should maybe be, that the art of language, how thoughtful that is. So I agree with that whole precision of language. I love that, and how we should look at what those words, the cadence and the musicality and the rhythm, all of it. But I also made me think about what actually you are communicating with that language, not just the precision that the use of the language itself, but the message. The responsibility that you have. Language actually is a powerful, powerful thing, and sometimes we forget just how powerful words can be, and how words can make a difference, how they can change everything, either for good or for bad. We've seen that all through history. So what you're communicating with that language as well. I have to really think about that, because the more I think about it, are you feeling this too? You think about it on the surface, and then you're thinking, there's a lot of layers to that. Like, come back to me next week and I would maybe have a better answer. But yeah, I mean,
I just saw Hamilton recently, and Hamilton, the musical, which is about Alexander Hamilton, and it's a lot of it is in rap. And Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote it, said history, that especially that period of history, was all about the art of language. So when you're talking about linking, history and communication, and I mean, that it really is about the art of language, but I think other disciplines also have something to do with that. I've read a lot of lyrical science writing, and that's very interesting to me too, because it makes you look at the universe in a different way, and then to get into the nitty-gritty of the science. So I think all of these things interconnect. But what you said is, yeah, next week ask me this, and I let me say other things. You're right. It's a very deep question, actually.
So that probably was not fair to totally launch on you, but the good news is that come convention, since that's what the theme is going to be all about, you'll get to reflect on that there, and you'll see that that's something that a lot of people will be talking about throughout the time that we're there. Can you both share with us, we're getting close to the end of our time together today, and I'm just loving listening to both of you talk. Can you talk to me a little bit about what you're working on right now?
Oh, got it. Marilyn.
No, you go first, Candy. Go ahead.
Okay, Marilyn's talking about lyrical science, and I'm thinking, I'm working on lyrical science. Actually, you'll see it. It's about giant squid with that very same. I'm thinking about art. I'm still on the art of language question here, but I was thinking of the exact same thing. Thinking to myself, I'm writing this piece about, or I have written it about a giant squid, and you could just layer on some facts, right? But the language isn't useful. I mean, just the facts are not useful. I needed to use the language to talk about how mysterious and dark and wonderful this creature is, and so it's more poetry than science in many cases, although I hate saying that with Marilyn here. But I have that coming, and then I'm also working right now. I have these. I'm working on my copy edits for a new biography about Buffalo Bill Cody. And, all biographies are not necessarily just about a person's life. So in this case, it's sort of a new look at Cody, and it really deals, clearly it's the biography of Will Cody, but fundamentally it's really about American memory and how one person in history can actually create American memory. So our memories of the Wild West, our American memory, our collective memory, are all really stem from Buffalo Bill and his Wild West and his traveling around the world with a show that shows what he says the West was. And even artists like Remington, who we think of as the great American artist, actually molded their vision of the West on that show as well. So, how a person can change the collective memory of a country with one traveling show. It's pretty astonishing. Then I have some fiction things I'm working on. An illustrated novel about the first great screen dog. His name was Strongheart. It's historical fiction, and a series if I ever get it finished. Shh, don't tell my editor I said that. So, yeah. So lots of stuff.
Wow. That sounds exciting. Let's see, Marilyn, let me just go.
I have a lot of stuff that's coming out, so I'll mention that first. Next spring, I have my third book of reversos, which is called Echo Echo, and it's based on the Greek myths. And then I have a really crazy book called Little Miss Muffet, or What Came After, which is this. I always think of it as a musical, but it doesn't have any music. It's nursery rhyme stuff, but twisted kind of. And then I have two little books coming out for, by little I mean for younger kids, called What is an Apple and What is a Banana, that are just funny rhymed things for that are coming out a year from now, actually. But what I'm doing revisions on right now are poems about those important moments when you realize that you're an older kid. So it's called I'm a Big Kid Now. And that's a series of poems. And also revisions on a collection called Every Month's a New Year, which I really did a lot of research for, and it's a lot of fun. There really is a New Year's celebration every single month. So I got to talk to people all over the world, usually by email, or about their different New Year celebrations. So that's a collection of poems. And I am also doing revisions on a collection of poems about all of the First Ladies, which is a follow-up to Rutherford B. Who Is He, which is on the presidents. So, and then I got some new things I'm working on, but I'm not going to talk about those yet because I haven't sold them. So I don't want to jinx them, and I don't want to embarrass myself and say, I'm working on this, and then find out nobody wants it. So those are some of the things that I oh, and also a collection of poems on social dances. That is coming out in 2017. And those are poems in the rhythms of the dances. So that was a lot of fun to write as well. Yeah, those are some of the things that I'm working on. And another Tallulah book. I don't know if you know about the Tallulah books. Those are prose picture books about a little girl in ballet. So the next one that's coming out, which I have to do revisions on, is Tallulah's Ice Skates, which doesn't sound like it has to do with ballet, but it does. So that's it. A lot of stuff.
My goodness. Well, you two are certainly busy. I'm not going to complain to you about my to-do list. That's impressive, an impressive set of things that you're working on. I had one last question because something that I've noticed as I'm getting to know our NCTE members and the community of folks that you'll be meeting with at the convention is that a lot of them, not only do they love and are they inspired by and do they teach the work of great authors like yourselves, but they also have these moments where they think to themselves, I'd really like to write, or I wonder if I have something that I could write, or I wonder if I have something that I could share with the world in the way that these authors do. And I'm wondering what kinds, if any of those folks tune into this video, what kind of advice you might give them as people who think about writing, who get inspired by writing, but how do you take that first step?
This is going to be like the flipping here, but I mean, it's going to sound this way, but I'm going to go, just do that. Just do it. Just carve out that, I don't know, 20 minutes a day if that's all you got, and then sit down and just write what it is that you're passionate about, what it is that you think you want to share with the world, what do you have to say to them, and just do that. Just do it. I think a lot of times what keeps us back from doing those things is we worry that, oh, maybe we won't sell it, or nobody will want it, or maybe it's not as interesting as I think it's going to be. We start doing that before we even get down to our desks, before we ever sit down with a piece of paper. So that's what I would say. Just sit down, have some fun with it, see where it goes, play with it. I always think, and I bet Marilyn says the same thing. All good stories, at least all of my good things, all my good stories start with play. They're just playing around to start anyway.
Well, I always tell people to observe. Just observe. Just walk around, use all of your senses, pay attention to things, and try to keep a sense of wonder about the world, because I think that really makes a difference. Curiosity makes a big difference in all writing. I know that you agree with that. And so try to stay curious. Try to be interested in things. Find out what you're interested in. And if you have a question, try to find the answer to it. I think that will lead into all kinds of writing. So that's what I always like to tell people. I think it's really important to be curious and to feel wonder and to look at things in many ways. And walk around. I like to walk around. Get out of your house.
Get out of the office, right?
And stop looking at your cell phone the whole time and walk around. That's it, really.
That's good. All right. Good advice for all of us. Good for your health, too. All right. Well, in our remaining moments, I wonder, both of you, it sounds like you are veterans of the NCTE convention.
Yeah.
Have been to this before. What's something that you're, aside from the fact that you will have adoring fans all about you when you go there, what's something that you're looking forward to this November?
At the convention or the month of November?
Oh, the month of November, that's true, especially for your book about New Year's starting every month. No, at the convention.
Well, I like to see what books are coming out. I actually do. I like to walk around and look at things on the floor, and I just find that a lot of fun. But also, because it's my husband's birthday, on Saturday night, this is Minneapolis. This is not, I'm sorry, it's not the convention, but we got tickets to see The Coconuts, which was a Marx Brothers musical with music by Irving Berlin, so I'm also looking forward to doing that. But as for the convention itself, I like the exhibits, and I love seeing fellow authors. I have to admit it. It's really a treat. We don't get to see each other that much. It's true. I mean, I like to get out of my house and walk around a lot, but I don't get to hang out with other authors. So that's a really nice thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way. It's a great way to look at all the books, right, and ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You got a lot. I badger people. But I really love, what I really love about it is that I get to see a lot of friends, a lot of old friends, people that I don't get to see very often. And so you get, 2 or 3, 4 days, however long you're there, you get a lot of hugs in that time, which is pretty great. And you always, I always end up with new friends. That's the other thing I love about NCTE, is that I always leave having made, a few new friends, which, gosh, that's just a gift, isn't it? So not only all those wonderful books and all those wonderful people that are making books, that care about books, that share your passion, I mean, gosh, but then you leave discovering more and more people that you absolutely adore. Yeah.
And it's not,
yeah.
It's not bad getting strokes from the teachers either.
It is not. Now you're going back to your office or your house where nobody's really, they're going, did you go to the grocery store today? So
I know. It's that Sally Field moment. You like me. You really like me.
Well, I am quite positive that will be happening for both of you a lot in a couple months, and I look forward to the chance to meet both of you in person. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts, and we'll look forward to hearing more from both of you. Both of our guests today will be speakers at the Children's Awards Luncheon at the annual convention this year, so you can come and hear them in person, and they'll probably be present in other places throughout the space. Now you know what they look like, so run up and say hello. Thank you, both of you, so much, and good luck with all those exciting projects. I know we have a lot to look forward to from both of you.
Thanks, Jenna.
Thanks. It'll be fun to meet you and Candy to see you.
Yeah, I'll see you guys soon.
Yeah. Take care.